Hello and welcome to Around the World in 80 Teas, the first few stops. My name is Sharon Hall and I'm the Chief Executive of the UK Tea and Infusions Association. Today we will be talking about oolong tea from China with my co-hosts Will Battle and our guests, James Pogson and Kate Kendall. James is the director of Northern Tea Merchants Limited, and he's also an executive board member of the UK Tea and Infusions Association, as well as a board member of the London Tea History Association. He has been in the tea trade since 1998, a total of 33 years. Kate describes herself as a tea enthusiast, and she's been working at the Camellia Sinensis Tea House in Montreal, Canada, for the last 10 years. Kate has also won the Tea Masters Cup round in Canada in 2019. My co-host Will of Fine Tea Merchants Limited has 25 years experience in the tea industry and has worked in tea businesses all over the world. He's also the author of the World Tea Encyclopedia. Kate, James and Will, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Today we're returning to China to talk about oolong teas. Will, I'll hand over to you to start the conversation.
Thanks, Sharon. Well, oolongs, and this is really exciting for me because they're a bit of a personal favourite. They're a very, very wide category of tea. Notionally, in between black and green teas, but doesn't really do them justice. So I'm going to lay a challenge down to Kate to see if she can describe what makes an oolong and how we get it from green leaf to oolong tea.
Well, what I like to say about oolong when I describe to people that don't know tea is basically that you pick up more aged leaf. Like for green tea, we would pick younger leaves. In oolong terms, we will pick more aged leaf, more bigger leaves to have more fragrance, and we will make them oxidize a bit to a point where we will stop the oxidation process. The oxidation process would be described as, I like to give the idea when you bite an apple and it became a bit brown, that would be the oxidation process. So we want to do some micro, we kind of want to art a little bit the leaves to by rolling them to help the oxidation process to go on. And there's some step where you can have a roasting process, you can have greener oolong, darker oolong, where depending on where you want to stop the oxidation process. So yeah, in simple terms, that would be basically it.
Where would you expect to find them in China typically? Which are the main producing provinces in China?
For sure, Guangdong and also Fujian, which is a big region, classic region for oolong teas.
So perhaps James, you can paint us a picture here. What if we went to Fujian? What would we see?
Well, plenty of planted areas, that's for sure. It depends how rural you go, I suppose. But from my take, from any visits I've made there, I've always been actually quite stunned by the beauty of the place and the spirituality of it as well, regardless of religion, but the spirituality and the culture of the people there. And I believe it is that and that curiosity that the Chinese have for their medicines and their plants. I believe it is that caused them to do these experiments. Possibly somebody even made a mistake and started to, oh gosh, this is a little bit over-oxidized or over-fermented or whatever way they would describe it as. And, but it's not half nice. And I think there's a little bit of that. And for me, the way that the culture and society works out there, there's always going to be great dissemination of information. So when someone discovers something, it'll be about 10 minutes and then everybody will know. And so this is how I think that pretty much across China, the various types of tea that you've already discussed on our 80 teas, journey around the world, I think that a lot of it, you have to think about the human element of it very much. And tea, I always say that tea is a hugely human product. People wouldn't have necessarily traveled very far back when oolongs were first discovered. There wouldn't have been mass, huge migration. Couldn't jump in a car and what have you. And so any visits made by people, and there's a great story of that's not necessarily an oolong story, but people who've travelled or learned to make tea somewhere else have then gone back to provinces that have traditionally produced a certain type of tea and absolutely radicalized it. I'm going to use the story of Keeman and Yu Ganchen, and he was, he sort of made tea in an area that had only had black tea, in an area that had made previously green tea. And the same thing I think applies with oolongs. And I think they were likely discovered by mistake, and it got about because oolongs are just so good. And that's what I really, to share anything with our viewers, would be get them tasted. They are absolutely delicious. Some of them will knock you out with their flavour, and all you have to do is make them with the right temperature water.
So perhaps we should start by doing that, and then we can start our navigation of what is quite a big field. So we've got a tea, or we're going to look at a tea which we'll try and describe to our listenership. And Kate, you alluded to it earlier. We have different levels of oxidation in oolong. Mm-hmm. So can you talk us through that, and what are you about to taste here?
What I have in my tea set right now is a Tieguanyin. So a Tieguanyin from the region of Anxi in the Fujian province. So what I have in terms of leaves, I don't know if you can see them. So those would be the leaves. So you can see that they are really green actually. So they look like a green tea, but they're slightly rolled in, I don't know if you can see them, but in like a little ball here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, well, I'll brew them and I can show you the result after, because I want you to show the leaf that once brewed, because you can see that they're really big actually, and they're also really fragrant.
So Kate, when you talk about a big leaf, you're talking about a more mature leaf that's just slightly older in terms of the period of its growing time. It's been around for a bit longer, which makes it a bit bigger.
Exactly. In green teas, we want basically to have like the buds and the first leaves or first two leaves. In oolongs, we want to have larger leaves because we want them to have like more tannin, more fragrance oil. I don't know if it's the right term for that, mm-hmm. But we want them to be really tasteful. We don't want to be like to have like the delicate I don't know how to explain it, but like the delicate taste that we need to like, oh, it's so subtle, it's really good. We want like flavor, we want strong and beautiful beautiful flavor and fragrance. And I just rinse the tea leaves, because in oolong we will most of the time rinse the tea to make it open a little bit. I don't know if you do that actually, but that's how I learned to brew oolong.
We like to think you can brew your tea really how you like, but it's often nice to hear someone who's quite good at it and what they do.
Well, personally, I like to rinse it just to make it, to open it a little bit before the first brew. And it kind of give you like the idea of what it will be. It's like a preview. It's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully put.
So I could have used a clay teapot, or what I mean by a clay teapot is something like this, or Gaiwan that are really widely used in China. But I can also
would you describe that teapot as? Is that a gong fu teapot?
This one would be a gong fu teapot. This one is kind of in between, I would say. But we can use it as a gong fu teapot, but it's a little bit big for my taste.
It's very attractive. And we see here the importance of ritual. This is absolutely hugely important. Look at that. Concentration, skill, and absorption. And if one was at work and you'd been having a bad day and you stop and make a cup of tea, you stop, you concentrate on the brewing of the tea, it takes you out of what you're doing and you go back to your work with your beautiful bowl of tea, much refreshed.
And what Kate's just done, actually, James, it strikes me, it's great sort of respect for the product, isn't it?
Yeah, beautiful. It's poetry.
Well, you know, we're really lucky to be able to taste those kind of product. I always tell that to myself when I drink a good tea, because like these tea travels the world just to meet us. And I think it deserves some respect. And it's flavor that we don't usually encounters here. Like this kind of floral taste, the texture also that is really, really smooth, that feels like all your mouth, but it's not like added sugar. It's not like artificial flavor. It's just like, it's something raw. It's something pure. It's something that's really connect you to your inner self. Like you, James, you were saying about the idea like of concentration and like to take a moment for yourself. And I think tea forces us to do that, you know?
So Kate, you're drinking a Tieguanyin. Can you just explain what it is that makes a Tieguanyin?
So a Tieguanyin basically is a cultivar. So a cultivar is a variety of tea, I would say. Like there's like the tea plants that is Camellia sinensis. Then you have like two variety of tea that are Assamica and sinensis. And after that, you have cultivars, like in wine, actually. And Tieguanyin is one of these cultivar, a quite old cultivar. And typically, the Tieguanyin from Anxi is really low oxidized, slightly raw, as I showed you. And you can expect in terms of flavor and scent something really flowery.
Yeah,
very
yes.
Like you can have a taste of peony, lilac. Like it's really a bouquet of flowers. It's really impressive. You have the impression of walking in a field during the summer. It's really it's really fragrant. Like you cannot mistake it. If you have a good Tieguanyin, you'll feel like this bouquet for sure.
I want to go from where Kate left off. And you were so poetic in your descriptions, and you were talking about walking in fields of flowers. Beautiful. With this particular one, the overbearing floral flavor to me in this one is jasmine. And you were talking about peony, and they're all very much of a certain sort of smell type, aren't they? And I do get a jasmine. It depends again on how long you infuse, but mine is quite, I was sort of showing earlier, if I put my fingers there, you can see that this is quite a green oolong tea. Don't necessarily judge a tea by its colour, because it can still be an oolong, even if it's as green as grass. And so, and it's down to the brewing and the flavour and the rolling of the leaves.
I can definitely taste the jasmine, James. I'm drinking the same tea as you. Delicious.
Yeah, and there's a sort of slightly lily aroma as well, which to me, I often think of these teas when people tell me they don't like tea because they say it's too bitter or too astringent, or they just never get on with the taste. it's always worth, I think, those people trying quite a lightly oxidized oolong like this Tieguanyin, and then so often they think, actually, I had no idea those floral flavors actually could be sort of extracted from a tea. They just it seems artificial. It's not artificial. It's the product of immense care in the factory and people having taken this wonderful cultivar that Kate was talking about and given us a sort of slap round the face of lilies and jasmine and peony, which is just a real delight.
Absolutely. And no roasting at all in that. You can tell there's been no roasting done.
Well, we talked about long gin earlier in the series, and that roasted tea had very nutty quality, and this much more floral, as we've said, completely different, delicious.
Slightly vegetal almost, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the colour of the liquor, you may think it's a green tea, but it very definitely, when you taste it, is very definitely not a green tea. And it's I think that's one of those fun things about tea in general, that you can get this vast array of tastes from the one bush. So really,
and those leaves unfurl, do they not? Kate, let's see yours. Oh wow.
So for those just listening on audio, what James and Kate are showing is the unfurled leaves now they've been brewed, which they look amazing.
So Kate, if you look round your leaf, do you see any signs of oxidation around the edge of the leaf?
Yes, I'll try to show you. I had like this tiny leaves with, okay. So this one, I'm not sure if you can see it. So it's really green, but on the edge, like in the low edge, it's a little bit browner.
Yeah.
And you have like all the edge actually has like a little bit of oxidation.
Perfect.
And that's what I was talking about when I was telling that it's bigger leaves. Like this one's not unfold totally yet, but they're really bigger than green tea leaves. For the one that are listening to us, I'm sure you have tasted some green tea before, and you probably notice that it's always like really delicate green tea leaves. In that case, well, they're still really delicate, but bigger. And so fragrant. Oh my God. It's really good.
You almost feel like dabbing it behind your ear before you go out.
I would make a perfume out of this. It probably exists.
I think it's been done. I'm certain it will have been done.
Kate, what are we going to taste? What would you, on our voyage through oolong as a category, we've tasted a Tieguanyin, specific cultivar, and quite a lightly oxidized tea. Where would you take us next?
Well, I was planning on taking you to another tea of Fujian province, the Hong Pao, that is quite famous also. So you have browner leaves. Do you see them properly? Yeah. And I'm not sure if you can see it properly, but the rolling has not been done the same way as for the Tieguanyin.
So what we saw on the Tieguanyin, for those who are not seeing the imagery, was a sort of shotty ball shape, whereas here we've got a sort of twisted, well-twisted, longer leaf, haven't we?
Exactly.
So we're going to taste the Hong Pao. Perhaps whilst Kate's preparing it, James, you perhaps can give us a sense of what Hong Pao is and where it comes from.
The legend is that the emperor was traveling, and I'm guessing he was on a sort of a royal tour of his domain, and he took his mum with him, and his mum fell really, really ill. Proper, sort of stop the tour, right, let's get my mum sorted out. And she was tended by a local Buddhist monk at the point of her illness. And he made an infusion from 2 only tea bushes. And this tea I'm going to be careful because of the advertising standard claims. I'm going to say this tea contributed to her recovery. But at the time, it was the tea that had obviously made her better. So the emperor was absolutely overjoyed that his mum was back to health again. And he threw his red robes over these 2 tea bushes. And so that's why sometimes Hong Pao can be called red robe oolong as well, AKA. Sometimes you'll see Wu Yi. I believe, is it Wu Yi that it was originally from?
Yeah, I think aren't they very difficult to access bushes halfway up a cliff?
I think they probably were, but now there are rather more of them, which is why us mere mortals are able to drink it, because otherwise it would have been a province of. And they actually, the 2 original bushes are still there at some 1,000 years old, and these things, so basically you get probably 500 grams of tea, maybe per bush, and this is auctioned. And in 2005, 500 grams of tea from either the left hand or the right hand bush fetched £250,000. And that shows when you've got to have it, haven't you, at that? But happily now, with there being more plants in the same area and vegetatively propagated from the originals, so nothing cloned in, just simply taken from the originals and bred out. Yeah. So now this tea is slightly more affordable. It's still pricey. I would advise that you check your provenance with everything, make sure it's okay, and you tend to get what you pay for. If you're shopping around on the internet, you get what you pay for, is to put it bluntly, because this is a pricey tea, but it's different and a great one for it's what I call a sort of little finger in the air dinner party tea. Bit of a show off, you know.
Well, Kate's now got her little finger in the air dinner party tea ready. So, Kate, give us a taste and tell us what you're tasting.
I need a minute there just to enjoy it. Browner oolong are probably in my favorite category of tea. That would be like in my top 3, because it evolves in your mouth, and I really like this feeling. The Tieguanyin was really like fulfilling, like it takes your mouth and it's like it stays there. It's really everywhere. This tea like tend to like, I will give the image of a drill, like and it starts like when it starts, you have like all the roasting notes. You kind of have like you can have bark tree. You can have a feeling of nuts, roasted nuts. Also, you can have also pastries, like you can have bread that comes, and after that there's some really fruity notes that comes in your mouth, and it's really intriguing, because sometimes you can have like I would say peach flavor, apricot flavor. At the same time, you have some caramel notes. It's really an experience, and you need to be really really present for the tea when you're tasting it. Like, it's a pricey tea, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say copy, but like falsely named Hong Pao. Like, oh yeah, it's from Wu province, so, and it's roasted, so it might be Hong Pao. Like you have those kind of claims, but when you have Hong Pao, it's pricey. we can tell it, but it's really a complex tea, and it's really, really interesting. It's not as in your face as Tieguanyin, I would say. Like Tieguanyin is really, it's a perfume, like we said before. But this is really like, it's an elixir, it's a potion, it's something that we need to take time to like really savor. And the Tieguanyin would be more like a daily tea for my taste, like a tea that you can take in the afternoon and you're kind of in an upbeat situation and you're keeping on with your day. But the Hong Pao would be more like a tea that stops you and really like brings you inside, and like it's a great tea to have a long conversation with a friend that you have not seen in a while.
What an amazing description. How beautifully put.
So Kate, while you're pouring that into the smaller tasting cup, what would you pair these teas with food-wise?
I've done a really wonderful pairing with cheese. Like, I don't know how to call it in English, so you'll have to help me there. Sure. But like a comté from France, like it's a hard paste, and it's a bit salty. And with the tea, it likes produce a totally different taste. It becomes really creamy, and it, my God, it becomes like totally another product. It brings also it brings all the fruity notes of the tea. Like we kind of lose the more grilled toasted taste to keep all just the creamy and the like creamy milky of the cheese, and salty with fruit apricots, and it's really, really amazing. I would highly recommend that you try it. It's a really good tea to pair with cheese.
Sounds wonderful. Making me hungry.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier, Kate, was the toastiness. And can you just explain how it is that we've got that taste in the tea? What's the tea maker done to create that character?
Okay, well, in our oolong process, so you have the picking steps, we have the oxidation steps, we have the rolling steps, and after that, it's kind of roasted at high temperature just to, and it will makes the leaf like all brown. The idea is like to finish the tea there. So it's kind of the signature of the producer most of the time. So every producer will have his own recipe on how much time he wants to like roast it to give the final taste that he wants, and it finishes the tea like that. That's like that's the signature product of the tea.
Is it fair to say that with oolong, the tea maker, with the skill they have in manipulating the oxidation process, and then with the roasting, they probably have more influence on the outcome of the product than in any other tea making procedure, really, that we're familiar with?
Absolutely. You have like in oolong you have all sort of contests also, and you have different price because mainly of that characteristic, because depending like the control of the transformation of the tea is an art in itself. It's not as like it's not a question of like in green tea you will really wants to like have the fresher leaves, the first buds, and like high quality tea leaves. But in oolong you will be dependent of the skills of the artisan that made the tea. Like this is really where you can see masters of like great master of oolong making will sell their tea a bit higher, and you'll have like more common oolong that will be fair. Like, I think most oolongs are really accessible for all kind of people. I think it's I agree with you, Will, that it's probably the more accessible teas of all the families of tea. Like, it's really common that when I have friends that don't drink tea, I will prepare an oolong and brings them in like this moment, and like, oh, what can you smell there? Okay, and brings them to be confident about like what they're feeling, because sometimes people get the idea of, oh yeah, I'm not a tea expert, I cannot pronounce, like I cannot give my idea about what I'm tasting. But with oolongs, it's really evident, and there's no bad answer.
I think a key objective of these podcasts is to just introduce people to different types of tea and get them to try them. And Kate, your description that, you know, it's open to everybody, there's no right or wrong answer, it really fits. And really the key message is just get out there and try an oolong, see what
Absolutely.
you think.
Whilst we're on Da Hong Pao, the story that always comes up when I'm talking to anyone about Da Hong Pao is when Richard Nixon visited China. And I think this is not a true story, and possibly one of those stories that's been invented by the Da Hong Pao Producers Association. But it seems to be that when Richard Nixon visited, he was presented with half that year's production of Da Hong Pao, and had been a little sniffy about that as a gift, considering he had apparently bought a limo. But I don't know if that's a true story, but it sounds like the sort of thing that would probably help you sell quite a lot more Da Hong Pao if it made it into the public domain.
What we don't attach in this country enough of is the value of tea, and something like an oolong that's had all that effort going into it, and not just, it's, you couldn't program the making of an oolong into a piece of software. There's no way you could make a machine that could do it, because with the humans, you think about it with this and this and that as well. And you know, some of the tea makers, you know, they get this feeling in the pit of their stomach, right, that's ready, and it will be perfect. And they know how the leaves behave and the nuances of it, and stuff that you just can't translate into an app or you know, have a robot do it or something like that. And that's again something else about it, particularly these oolongs and these quite technical from a production point of view. Drinking them is the easiest part, without a doubt. But the effort that's gone into these is absolutely, and Kate described it beautifully, and has given us all some idea of the levels of skill and variation required. And if you think about it, those leaves are an agricultural product, and the temperature is not the same every day, and neither is the humidity. And that's why you've got to feel it down here.
Your point, for those who are just listening, James, you're saying you have to feel it in your stomach.
Yes.
Well, James, your point's absolutely right, because perhaps one of my more enduring memories of going to Fujian and seeing some of the shotty ball type oolongs being made, like the one that Kate presented at the beginning of the episode, was the teamwork that goes into oolong making. There's a part of the production process in which one artisan is putting the tea leaf into a cloth ball that is crimped, sort of about the size and weight of a medicine ball, and another will be discharging leaf from a cloth ball and roasting it, and then they'll swap their loads. And it's like ballet to watch the teamwork, as one of them, they both get their leaf out of their respective activities and put it on wheeled dollies and wheel it to each other across the factory floor. And these, without looking at each other or consulting each other or any signal, these dollies cross in the middle of the factory and are picked up by the other team member, and then they sort of carry on working. It's just it's like ballet and this amazing teamwork that's going on in the factory, which I thought was so striking. And then you sort of only really see what that skill has led to when you taste the final product.
Amazing.
Great deal of discipline in that teamwork, isn't there? You know, and that's again something that I notice particularly whenever I've seen any tea being made.
It reminds me of a story that one of the owner at the tea house where I'm working told me one day. We have this really like rational idea of like how a tea should be made in Occident countries, like, oh, it should be like that amount of times, and we're really precise. And one of the owner wanted to know how much time it takes to like achieve an oolong, like when do you know it's ready? And the producer told him, well, just wait with me and you'll see. And they were chatting, and at a moment it just like the producer just like got up and like continued to do the process. And the owner asked, wait, is it the time? He said, yeah, it's smelling like pears. You cannot smell it? And the owner was really mesmerized because he was like, nothing happened. Like he just knew. He just knew that it was the correct time because he's been doing that like for a long time, and his father before him. So there's in China and in Taiwan, there's often these lines of producers that have been passing like the farm from a generation to another, and they tend to develop this gut feeling of it's the moment, and it skills, but it becomes like a second nature. Like you just know, like it's ready. This is the moment, and it cannot be evaluated in terms of like you cannot start a chrono and say, okay, like it's 60 seconds and go, and we'll stop it. Like you said, Will, there's so many factors like humidity, and it can be also, one producer told me once that it can be like the ends of the people manipulating the tea leaves, like if they're sweaty at the moment, and if there's also this beautiful idea of how you feel when you're making the tea. And it was one producer once told me that he likes people singing in the factory because like the idea of like fun and pleasure would be tasted in the teas. And I think
we have to get my staff to do that. That'd be funny. I don't know what they'd sing. Brilliant.
So, Kate, I said in the introduction that you were the winner of the Tea Masters Cup in 2019 in Canada. We're launching this competition in the UK in 2022. Can you tell us a little bit about it and the category that you won?
I'm really happy that you'll be joining the Tea Masters Cup. That's great. That's great news for UK. So, Tea Masters Cup is a contest in 4 categories. In Canada, we had 2 categories for the first year. You have tea preparation, tea mixology, tea tasting, and tea pairing. For Canada, we have the tea preparation and tea mixology for the first year, and I won the tea preparation categories. So in this category, you basically need to bring one of the tea that you want to show to the world and find the best way to present it. So that's the purpose of this contest. I chose a Japanese green tea, one of my favorite, and I developed a technique where I wanted to extract the full potential of the Japanese green tea. There's this, I don't want to take too much time, but there's this technique in Japan where you have infusion with ice cubes, and I wanted to reproduce that, but in 10 minutes. So I work on a process to achieve this taste and to have this wonderful umami taste, and that's it. And the second one is you have like a list of tea, and you pick one and you have to brew it, but you don't know in advance what tea you'll get. So you need to be able to brew any tea that will comes to you, and you have tools that are imposed on you. So you need to use the tools. And I think I got the worst tools for me. Like, it was this really giant teapot of 1 liter and with big cups. So I don't use these instruments quite often. So I was like, okay, what will I do with this big mama? And I decided to go with a classic black tea from Vietnam that was rolled like the Hong Pao we saw. And I told myself, oh, okay, this tea is rolled, so it will develop slowly. So even if I drop it because I'm talking, I'll be able to make it good at long term. And in a big teapot, it will comes good anyway, because it's a green tea, it's a black tea, and there's a lot of tannins, so it should come out great. But I have only 10 minutes to like discover the tea and just be like, okay, it's supposed to taste like that. Okay, I'll do that. And it's really a fun competition. I hope you guys will have that much fun as I had with the competition. I was really going there like not expecting to win, just wanted to have fun, and I really got like a big great moment there.
And now you get to compete in the international competition, right? When we can travel again.
Hopefully.
Yeah, superb. Excellent. Okay, Will, I'll hand to you just to wrap up.
Yeah, thanks, Kate and James, so much for entertaining us on the theme of oolong. So do you have any parting thoughts for our listeners about oolongs? Kate, can I start with you?
I think oolong is a tea that brings people together, and it's really important. Like, you have the taste, you have the transformation, and you have all those really pragmatic infos on oolong. But I think oolongs are teas for great moments to bring people together, and that's something I want people to realize and enjoy at home, like to try to share a oolong tea with their family and friends when we will be able to like meet everyone again.
Perfect, that's great, thank you. And James?
What I like about oolongs is actually the variation, and we can go from and these semi-oxidised teas can actually cover we've been talking about Chinese ones, but we have a whole realm of oolongs in Taiwan. I even have here a Bangladeshi red robe oolong from my friend Shamim in Halda Valley. It arrived yesterday morning. I was hoping we'd get time to try. So, and this is the thing about oolongs. They're so varied. Mm-hmm. They really, really are. And to go from Tieguanyin to Hong Pao, you've got a big journey in flavour. It's the quality that really gets me going. And I think the quality and having great moments together, it's all sort of tied in with it. And so I like the variation and the fact that an oolong, what makes an oolong? Well, we've spent an hour and we've only touched the tip of it, haven't we? Yeah. So that's really what does it for me.
That's great, brilliant. Thanks, both of you, so much. And I think that's a good place to leave it.
This has been an episode of Around the World in 80 Teas, the first few stops. I would like to thank our guests today, Kate Kendall and James Pogson, and my co-host, Will Battle. We hope you'll join us again soon.
Thank you.